Hey folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with...
I'm Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome everyone.
Been a couple weeks again. I don't know, we should just shoot for twice a month instead of every week. Of course, then we'd end up doing it every month, once a month.
Could be.
What if we shoot for twice a week?
Interestingly, I ran into a guy who's one of the knights here that I know, and he is really into his business with his dad is kind of like online presence and social media and that kind of stuff. And I mentioned to him about our podcast, and he said, when you miss weeks like that, because I said, we'll go a few weeks and then we'll miss one. He said, when you miss weeks, one of the things I read is that it's best not to say anything about it and not to apologize because it draws attention to it. Most people don't listen in order anyway, because they've got some kind of program that just downloads the latest ones, and most people won't even know it unless you draw attention to it.
Yeah, he's probably right. But I just feel compelled to do it. I'll say it, and then I'll mute the microphone while I'm apologizing from now on.
There we go.
Okay, well, I mean, it's been kind of a hectic 2 weeks. There's a lot of stuff happening, but there are some things that happened previously that I don't know, it happened and it seemed kind of like a small deal at the time, but I'm starting to think maybe it's a bigger deal than we really thought, and maybe we ought to address it and talk about it a little bit. And that was Pope Francis. He was addressing, a bunch of Italians. Who was he addressing? Members of Italy's National Catechetical. You're going to have to say it for me.
Catechetical
office.
It sounds like too many C's in a row. That's why it's hard to say.
Yeah, I can't. It's like saying banana-na-na. It's like reading banana-na-na. Or chrysanthemums. Okay, anyway, so he's addressing, and he comes out with this little thing. He's talking about Vatican II, and I guess he was addressing the trads. And I don't know if he's addressing the trads or just traditional Catholics. It's hard to tell if he's talking about people like St. Pius X crowd, or if he's just talking about all us guys who go to the traditional Latin Mass and don't really care for the Novus Ordo.
Oh, right. Which it would be interesting if that's who he was addressing, because the Novus Ordo, most people generally recognize the Novus Ordo as a failure to implement the Vatican II call for reform of the Mass and Sacrosanctum Concilium.
At least traditional Catholics do.
Traditional
now,
Catholics.
The Novus Ordo crowd,
if you read the text, you see a lot of stuff in the text that it's like, we failed to do that. For example, that the text says Latin is to be retained in the Roman Rite.
Right.
Well, you don't find it most places anymore. So
if
the Pope is out there saying, hey, Vatican II is the thing, you have to accept Vatican II. Oh, okay, well then I have to accept that we're supposed to be using Latin in our Mass. And only in some limited circumstances allowing the use of the vernacular to make it certain parts of it a little bit more accessible to people.
Now, if we could see that didn't happen in the Novus Ordo, that doesn't necessarily mean the Novus Ordo is a illicit Mass.
Well, right. That's
And it doesn't mean that the churches doing the Novus Ordo are not Catholic. It just means that this wasn't followed the way it should have been followed.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it means that if you take the Pope at his word about Vatican II, it gives you a little bit of a leverage to give some criticism to how the Novus Ordo was rolled out to the world.
Right.
But it doesn't invalidate it in any sense.
Yeah, and it's not like we ever thought St. Martin's up the street with the Novus Ordo was infallible.
Right.
Their actions aren't infallible, and what they say isn't infallible. It's just they didn't do the right thing. And the people in charge, the American Catholic bishops, they're not infallible. And so here we've got the Novus Ordo, the way it's being practiced right now in America, which is, we can see the results. There's less and less people going to Mass. The church is shrinking.
Of those who go to Mass, there is a smaller and smaller percent who even believe in it. By which I mean believe in the real presence. The real presence
and about 100 other Catholic teachings that some of them, they don't even know what the teaching is.
Right. So,
but I guess, okay, we should at least say what he said.
Yeah. Do you have an English translation of the speech, or at least some of the major parts of the speech? I've been
have
searching
part
here.
of it. One. He said,
okay.
He was referring to Vatican II. And he said, this is the magisterium. The council is the magisterium of the church. Either you are with the church, and therefore you follow the council, and if you do not follow the council, or you interpret it in your own way as you wish, you are not with the church.
Now that's interesting. Interpret it in your own way as you wish. Well, it has to be interpreted somehow.
And there's only one authority that can interpret it.
Yeah.
That's the church.
Right.
And what do we come back to? The hermeneutic continuity.
Oh, those hermeneutics, right. Because what he says about the Council of Vatican II, that statement, take out Vatican II and put in any other single ecumenical council in the entire history of the church, and it's still a true statement.
Yeah.
That's the point that we should be taking from this, and the context within which we should be receiving that statement.
Right. And I don't really have a problem with that. Here's the thing about, and I think a lot of trads fail to see this. I mean, they point to the horse, the picture of the horse, the
cartoon, the fine rear end and the cartoon head.
Yeah, and they say, see, this is how you're interpreting Vatican II. But the thing about that is it's not a point to show what the picture of the church is before and after the council. That's not what that interpretation means.
Yeah,
all that it means is that the church has said certain things, and we believe that the church is infallible. And so everything that came out of Vatican II has to be interpreted in a way that makes everything before that still valid and infallible.
And true, yeah.
And true, yeah.
And in the manner meant before that.
Right.
So those who say, for example, Vatican II, well, it looks like they changed teaching, but it's really just a development of doctrine. Well, no, if you think you have to use that concept of development of doctrine in order to explain away an apparent contradiction between Vatican II and earlier councils, it doesn't mean that was a development of doctrine. It means that you're misinterpreting Vatican II.
Right. So you go back to the original text and say, well, okay, well, if it means this, then it's really not contradicting anything or developing. It's just
restating.
Most of the documents, I'm not going to say that. The documents that people point to as being problematic, when you really read them word for word, you start to see that most of them don't actually say anything.
Right. Right.
If you interpret it through the tradition of the church, which is how we have to interpret it, as Pope Francis says.
There's nothing new. Think of it as an attempt to take certain teachings of the church and bring them to emphasis in a certain way that, now, John the 23rd, when he convened the council, he thought all of the strife that the church would encounter was basically over, and now it's time to, usher in the fullness of the church's message to the world, and it's going to be kind of a glorious golden age, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
He really believed that's what it was. He had no idea of some of the things that were waiting, some of the challenges that were waiting down the road. But nonetheless,
we would hope.
The intention was to take those, certain aspects of the church's teachings and present them as a special focus for the times, not to develop any kind of new doctrine.
Right. So I have no problem with what Pope Francis said along there, because he's right.
No, neither do I. He says a lot of things that are really stupid, but this isn't quite one of them.
I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess someday we ought to do a show that kind of go over the Pius X objections to Vatican II and why some of these objections aren't really, they're not very good objections. Because
we should do that sometime.
The thing is, popes have tried to bring them back into the church, and it's very obvious at this point they don't want to be a part of the church. Instead, I'm not real sure what they want. I think they want the church to say Vatican II and everything about it was wrong. And that, I can't see how they would think that could happen.
Yeah, that's...
Or maybe suddenly it's like, oh, wait a minute, we were all wrong. Why don't you guys elect a new pope? Or something like that.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what they want.
It's not realistic.
I don't know why they think they're still Catholic when they reject the church. And I'm not talking about the church's dogma, because they're the first ones to point out that Vatican II did not define dogma. So if it didn't define dogma, where is your objection to it? You still have to, if it directed you to do something, you still have to do it, because not everything the church says is dogma. I mean,
right. And most of what was in Vatican II was expository, not, it didn't include any kind of disciplinary directions. Most of it was expository, just explaining, and a few things were sort of call to action, sort of like Sacrosanctum Concilium, that called for a reform of the Mass and said, okay, we would, like to see the Mass reformed along these guidelines. And right. I think there may be a couple other documents that are in that vein. Most of them, however, are just, okay, here's a thing explaining this aspect of the church, the relation of the church to other religions, the dignity of man, and, different things like that. So not really anything even disciplinary. It's just it's a restatement of already existing church teaching with the focus that the Council Fathers thought were important for that particular time in the church's history.
And they wanted a new Mass, and they gave guidelines for that, and later it was obvious they didn't follow those guidelines. Now, for the English Mass, some of that has been not like nearly enough, but some of it has been resolved, and admittedly there were problems, like misinterpreting the words of consecration.
Oh, right. Yeah. There were the whole International Committee on English in the Liturgy. They were kind of sent back. I kind of think of it as they handed in their assignment, their Latin homework to translate something. They handed in their assignment, and the teacher said, okay, I'll take it for now. And then he got around finally to grading it. He said, nope, you got to go back and redo this.
Yeah, like that's 50, kind of what happened years to later.
Them, like schoolboys. Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, it's possible, it's my argument, and I know you've got an argument for this or against this, that maybe most of the English-speaking world did not have communion. But
during that time. We should debate that sometime on another episode.
Yeah. Anyway, the thing is that they changed it. They rectified that part of it. And there are still plenty of other things that are not rectified. But it was still, Vatican II called for them to do this. Now, it's not, when they called for the church to do this, it didn't involve dogma or doctrine. They didn't issue any kind of article of faith. But that doesn't mean that they're not binding.
Right.
There was a plan laid out. We need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this should be done. When Christ said to St. Peter, I give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven, now that might have involved defining doctrine. But when he said, everything you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven, and everything you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. He wasn't saying you can write doctrine for us, because truth is truth. No matter, St. Peter couldn't write truth. Truth is truth.
Yeah,
it's already there.
He
All he
can't
can do is define
new
it.
Truth that doesn't exist. He conforms to truth under the power of the Holy Spirit, but the binding and loosing has to do with discipline.
Right. He can say, you have to fast on Good Friday, and if you don't do it, there's going to be an eternal consequence to that. Well, I guess there could be an eternal consequence to that, because it would be a mortal sin and
a spiritual consequence that can become eternal.
Right. That would be the better way to say it. But that's what the binding and loosening power is. And that's why, even though the Vatican didn't define any doctrine, it's still binding. And it's something most Catholics should know. So then later, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, you know that Timothy Gordon is coming out with a book on the documents of Vatican II.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about it.
When he comes out with that, we ought to sort of review that book on our podcast.
Yeah, do a book review.
We haven't done one of those. We've done a couple of movie reviews.
Yeah, he's. I'm actually looking forward to that. But hasn't he said it was coming out like 3 or 4 times?
I've never heard him give a date.
Hasn't this book been postponed once or twice? Or maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I don't know.
I might be thinking of something else.
I don't know.
But I do plan on getting that book when he comes out with it. So that'll be interesting. Now, not long after this, Pope Benedict does a interview. I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories going on around this interview, saying this doesn't sound like something Pope Benedict would say. I don't know if it matters. Look, this happens all the time. You get questions for an interview and you don't necessarily answer them yourself. You assign someone, not us, but people who are important, have someone write the answers for them. And it kind of doesn't matter if you really said it or not. What matters is if you sign your name to this and say, okay, yes, this is what I think, then, of course, in the interview, they're claiming that he was there in person speaking and his voice was this way and he looked this way. So, but if that's not the case, if he's okay with what they wrote, then I don't see how that matters either. But I guess there were conspiracy theories about why he retired. And
was he forced to retire and that kind of stuff.
Right. And he says, no, he did this, and he said his conscience is fine. First, that is one weird thing, because he said,
why refer to it that way? Maybe he just meant that I did it with full consent of my own will.
Well, that was first he was talking about consciousness.
Oh,
then he talked about his conscience.
That's
weird.
He
said both. First he said conscious, then he said conscience. And I thought,
switch up there. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess I don't know what we're to make of this. He also talked about Joe Biden being a practicing Catholic. It's a shame that a pope would say that.
That he just legitimized all of those Catholics who pretend to be Catholics but want to make abortion legal in America, and now all of the Catholic Democrats who want to vote for them are going to believe mistakenly, incorrectly, they're going to believe that they can vote for people like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi with a clear conscience.
Right, and it's accurate to say that voting for someone like that is sinful. There's an argument to be made that it gets you booted from the church.
It could be, yeah. Depending on the level, there's a automatic excommunication for certainly directly procuring an abortion, but the level of complicity in So you're voting for someone you're willfully voting for someone who is bound and determined to keep abortion legal and available. It seems to me that you're certainly complicit in those abortions that are happening as a result of that then. So
especially when it's someone who preaches, who says, yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, I believe that women should be allowed to kill their babies. That's...
Yeah. It doesn't seem to me like there's a whole lot of out or wiggle room there.
Other than the fact that maybe ignorance of what you're doing, ignorance of this might excuse, I don't know.
Yeah.
People become a lot more ignorant when their Pope doesn't direct them correctly.
Yeah, right. There's if your shepherd is misguiding you, maybe there's a little bit of culpability there, or a lack of culpability, but or at least mitigation for it. But
I guess we can hope for that. I would hate to think all these people are going to hell.
But Jesus said when he made the comparison, the analogy to the town guardians. I forget the exact words, but basically the people whose charge is to watch out for enemies of the town. And he said, if the enemy cries, or if the watcher cries, the enemy's coming, and the town people ignore him, okay, they're going to die, but the watcher's not going to be responsible for their deaths. But if the watcher keeps silent, the people in the town are still going to die.
Yeah.
Only now the watcher is responsible for their deaths.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's scary.
To me, I think Jesus gave a lot of very clear indication that it's a spiritual work of mercy to admonish the sinner. When our bishops are failing at that, the sinner is still a sinner, but now the bishops have their fate on their hands.
Yeah. One of the problems is that, so first of all, the bishops become complicit, but it's harder and harder to find excuses. Maybe 500 years ago, a Catholic who was just doing what their bishop says might have some kind of an excuse. But with the internet today and the vast amount of information that's out there, it doesn't take long to find it.
No.
If you think that it's okay to vote for a pro-abortion candidate, it's not because of the research you did. It's because you're hiding from the truth and you don't want to know the truth. So
when you say, well, see, my bishop supports Joe Biden. Well, that's not seeking the truth. That's rationalizing your own failure.
That goes back to what we talked about in the last podcast, when in concupiscence, when our intellect becomes subject to the will, it gets it gets scary.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's a good point. Way to tie that in.
So that's what's going on the spiritual front. Now, tying in with that culturally, we've got some kind of goofy things going on here. First of all, there's a child now who has 3 dads and no mother. On his birth certificate, there are 3 fathers listed.
In reality, he has a father and a mother. That still hasn't been done away with, biologically speaking. But yeah, is this the United States or is this in Europe somewhere?
This is in the U.S.
Okay.
I don't remember where. Probably California. But I don't know where. That poor kid's going to
be messed up. I just feel sorry for all the kids of even just same-sex parents, but now 3 dads, and it's that way on his birth certificate. These kids, they're just going to be so messed up.
We ought to do a show about that, because I've heard even strong Catholics come in the defense of the idea of gays adopting children. And I don't know. I think 5 years ago, maybe some people could kind of rationalize it. Well, they're just people, but we see where all of this leads now. And all the things that people warned about 5 years ago are actually happening now. Now we've got a kid with 3 dads instead of 2 dads. And next week it'll be a horse and a dad.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, what's to stop? I mean, even if you the thing is, these kids are going to be they're going to grow up with completely messed up views about human relationships and how they work and how,
right.
The sexes relate to each other and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, it's one thing for some people to just go off the deep end. Okay. Some people are going to go do that gay thing and go live that lifestyle. Okay. Get out of mainstream society, go to your private clubs, go away hidden, do your thing underground, whatever. All right. And maybe even decriminalize it. But now you're bringing it out into the mainstream and raising a whole generation of kids to think that highly abnormal stuff is normal. And guess what? Those kids are going to be the ones who are most subject to things like pedophiles and stuff too, because they're already going to be conditioned to think that stuff is normal, which is not.
Yeah. And so when, you've got a 11-year-old girl sitting there and she's got two dads and they're telling her, hey, everything's fine. And then Uncle Remo comes over and maybe touches her. Everything's fine. What difference does it make?
Exactly. Yeah.
These are the kinds of things that happen, and it's a small example of what happens. The problems just get enormous until you've got this situation like in Sodom and Gomorrah where everything's mayhem. And
at least in Sodom and Gomorrah, they weren't pretending to be married and stuff. They were just vile and taking advantage of each other and stuff.
Yeah, now they're trying to play house, and it's like...
Yeah, to take that vileness and try to normalize it, that's even beyond.
The fact that nature keeps trying to put a stop to it ought to tell these people something. Yeah. Nature doesn't allow a child to be born this way or conceived. So why would they think that it's natural? And then afterwards, nature causes all kinds of problems, from disease to... Look, the way they interact with each other sexually causes problems. Physical problems. Our bodies aren't meant to be used that way.
No,
there's a specific thing that happens in sex. That's the way it's supposed to happen. And that's how you get babies.
It was
when you do it another way, it frustrates the body, and you develop all kinds of problems.
So what about the other aspect? Whatever state this was in, was this a case? Because I didn't know anything about this. So clearly they managed to get this onto the birth certificate. Is there also some arrangement in that they're allowed to actually be all three married to each other in this whatever state they're in? I would have expected that to be something that goes up to like the
married.
State. Okay. They're just together calling themselves dads.
Two of them were.
And then a third one wants to be.
And then a third one got involved, and throuple. They're calling them a throuple, THROUPLE, I guess for three couple.
Okay.
Nothing is saying whether or not any of them are married.
Okay, so they may or may not be. That's the other thing is that at some point are they going to just throw marriage out the window and say, just whatever, day by day, shifting arrangements. Yeah, like that's a way to raise a kid. But
yeah,
the thing is, when this whole so-called gay marriage thing came down from the Supreme Court, I said the very next day, well, based on the rationale that was given by the Supreme Court for this, there's no particular reason why it has to stop at two.
Yeah.
And what they wanted to promote as the definition of marriage, there's no reason it has to stop at two. It can be 3 or 4 or however many.
It could be just a giant orgy house that...
There's no reason that the Mormons can't go back to doing what they were doing all along.
Right.
And under Obergefell, that should be legitimized now. Because there's no reason that has to stop at 2.
Right.
I mean, the 2 is an arbitrary thing now that Obergefell is there. So under Obergefell, the Mormon system ought to be legitimized now, and they ought to be able to do their thing. But any particular arrangement of people who want to call themselves married and benefit from civil, marital, or whatever structures are in place, ought to be allowed to do so.
Right.
The one that I like to point out is that, you know, these mafia families, they ought to all just get married to each other, and then nobody's allowed to rat on another in states where spouses aren't allowed to testify against each other.
Yeah. Well.
So yeah, he can't testify against me. We're married.
None of it really makes sense, and it's sad that it's happening, but it was pretty foreseeable. But it did happen finally. Now we've got the first child with 3 dads.
3 dads. Poor kid.
Meanwhile, kids are taking another hit when they took Dr. Seuss off the market. So Dr. Seuss is being canceled now.
Yeah, I guess it's just some books at first, but they keep growing the list or something like that.
Yeah, because I guess he's got more white people than other people. So, but most of the characters in Dr. Seuss books are not people at all.
Yeah, most characters in Dr. Seuss are
who's and what's and...
I'm not sure that I've ever seen a Dr. Seuss book with an actual person in it.
Right. I'm trying to think. So, okay, Uncle Ubner
maybe green eggs
in his
and ham?
underwear. No, that was
Uncle,
a white man.
That's right. Uncle Ub's umbrella and his underwear too. Okay.
And then, but Jerry Jordan.
No, he wasn't a person.
That was like a bear or something.
Was the policeman in a pail?
I don't think that's a person. No, It's some kind of weird looking animal.
Gosh. Okay. Yeah.
And the one Clark that they found in the dark.
Oh, was that a person? I've never read that one. No, but the other one was
in a pail.
The baby, Barber baby Bubbles and a bumblebee.
The
baby.
Yeah.
The baby and Barber, I think, were replaced. So, okay, like, you've got this smattering of people in Dr. Seuss books. Hardly any of the characters in Dr. Seuss books are actually people, but you've got this smattering of them, and because they happen to be white, you're going to cancel them?
And to be honest, most of them are yellow or brown, not white.
Yeah, it's white is kind of a... Right.
Okay. Policeman in a pail was some kind of animal. I can't tell what it is. It's not a human being though. So it has no race.
Right.
But the whole thing is just silly, and they keep getting sillier. The thing is, I like the Dr. Seuss books, but he was pretty liberal.
As a guy?
I would consider him a bad guy. I thought he was pro-abortion.
Oh, really? I didn't. I never even knew anything about his.
Dr. Seuss.
I was never aware that he had political views. You know what I mean?
Well, he started out
he was just an author
a political cartoonist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's where he started. I'm looking up here. Well, his widow is a longtime supporter of Planned Parenthood.
Oh, yeah. So he was probably...
I guess I would... I think we can assume that he's pro-abortion.
Yeah.
So the color of characters in his books, which nobody notices, is kind of a silly thing to just... It's silly to point out. I don't know. I've memorized like 7 or 8 of those books over the years from reading them to my kids. And I don't think race was ever even thought about in any of them.
No.
But, oh well.
So are these people who are coming up with this stuff? I mean, at what point is the level of silliness going to top out?
I don't know. Because, that's the other thing. Well, we got to get back to this, but Trump finally comes out of the shadows, and he does a speech at CPAC, and they're looking for something. So they look at the stage and the design of the stage. I guess when you look down on it, you know what? I never even looked to see what they were talking about.
Okay, shape
looks like a Nordic rune,
resembles a Nazi
also...
rune. A photo of the stage went viral. Its distinctive design to an odal rune.
Oh my gosh! To me, it looks like something you would see in Pac-Man.
It just looks like a modern convention stage to me.
Yeah, it's silly.
I don't get it. I mean, boy, they are really stretching, aren't they?
Well, so I think the person who designed that stage did a lot of work for Biden and a lot of the liberals too, and now she's been canceled. So,
okay.
I don't know if there is an end to it, other than the fact that it just becomes this big cluster of everybody accusing everybody else of being racist or Nazis, and it becomes more important for us to ignore and laugh at them.
Oh gosh, wow.
But at the same time, we got to quit being scared of being canceled.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, treat it as the silliness that it is. Laugh at it.
Yeah. And don't try not to be canceled.
Yeah. Just, gosh,
The reason they were able to take the election from us is because of people hiding their
concerns,
their Trump support.
Their support and
if people don't stop, then this just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And I don't know. But
oh my.
He did come out and speak.
Will the silliness ever end?
Did you hear any of the sound clips?
No.
Okay. So I guess what we can say at this point is he's not going away. He is here. He is coming back to the realm of politics, or at least that's what he indicated. Number one. Number two, he is not starting a new party.
Good. Okay.
His plan is to take control of the Republican Party, which he almost did, and he still does lead it. And let's face it, to 70-something million people, he still is the man.
The part of the Republican Party that doesn't follow Trump ought to just go be Democrats anyway, because they're more like Democrats than they are like most of America.
Right. The problem is they're the ones making the rules for us right now.
Right. So there's work to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. And my hope is that he directs that. Because I don't think it's going to get done unless someone like him steps in and says, all right, this is what we have to do. A, B, C, and D. It needs to be spelled out clearly. We have to take back the party by going to these meetings and running for these offices. The way Mom and Dad did here in Cincinnati such a long time ago.
That's right.
And if they had the numbers, I guess it would have worked. It didn't work because they didn't quite have the numbers.
Yeah. If they had
they cheated.
A sort of a visible, leader of like a Trump caliber, that kind of thing, then that movement would have worked.
Yeah. So I guess I was happy to see that. The other thing I was happy at is that, look, everybody knows they stole the election. Everybody knows Trump won.
They know they stole the election, and they admit it now. You see that Time article?
No.
There was was it Time? Basically, they outlined how they were going to get together and steal the election. And they did it. They said, everybody, the liberal Democratic leadership, big tech companies, and Wall Street all realized Trump had to go, so they all got together and colluded and decided, no matter what, we are going to make sure this election does not go to Trump, and we're going to figure out ways to do it. They came up with the whole mail-in voting and other things like that, and it worked. And now the House is trying to introduce rules to take over from the states the rights to control their own elections, saying we're going to nationalize the rules concerning elections. Everybody's going to have to register and be part of a national voter registration database.
Yeah.
So now they're basically going to, the plan is to
make it easier.
Carve into stone the ability to steal elections.
Right.
That's what they're doing with the nationalization of election rules.
Yeah. It's got to be fought, but I don't know how to fight it. I don't know what we could do.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to leadership, and that leadership has to give directions.
Mm-hmm.
And we said that back, this whole thing with the Capitol, storming the Capitol, even back then we said, well, I guess I could conceive where Trump militarily keeps control of the White House. But if Trump doesn't say this is what we're doing, then it's just violence for the sake of violence, and it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Which is no better than what the left had been doing all summer anyway. Right.
Only we'll get punished for it, and they won't.
They won't.
And that's what we're seeing happen. So, anyway, yeah, he comes out, and as disheartening as that was when they stole the election, especially for people at the bottom like us, there's kind of a feeling of, well, I'm through. I'm never voting again, or even just kind of riding a dead horse and talking about how well we did win it, and you guys stole it. So you keep talking about that, and then since we can't do anything about it, well, nothing ever gets done again, at least on our side. So, but that is not what Donald Trump is doing. When Hillary felt that she had been cheated somehow, even I don't know why she thought that, but she kept doing interview after interview talking about how she's the real winner. But Donald Trump, he didn't talk about it, really. The only thing at the end of it, he said, who knows, maybe in 2024, I'll beat him a third time.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing he said that there's a little jab in the gut, but he's not He's not wallowing in this.
No,
he's
not like
he's getting prepared for battle, and he's getting his ducks in a row, or at least that's the impression I got with his speech. And it was a good speech, and it was nice to hear from him. And hopefully he's going to be a lot more present.
Yeah.
Who's coming up is Dinesh D'Souza. Have you been listening to him?
I have been. I listened to his podcasts.
I don't want to seem blasphemous, but I think I like him almost as much as Limbaugh. I don't. Okay, look, this is a podcast and not a radio show.
He doesn't do the 3 hour a day every day thing,
right?
And he doesn't have call in like Limbaugh. Limbaugh would have call ins, and he would answer people and stuff like that. In fact, it was kind of funny. Limbaugh, gosh, his call-ins, so, hey, Limbaugh, I agree with you. Absolutely. He said, okay, yeah, great, thanks. Hang up. If somebody disagreed with him about something, boy, that was when Limbaugh loved it. The people who disagreed with him got the most airtime on his show. But yeah, if I don't know if D'Souza will ever evolve to that or not, but yeah,
I would
really
love
good.
to see it. I would like to see him on the radio.
Me too.
I know that I don't know how entertaining he is live, but I know he can think on his feet because he debates all the time.
Oh, right. So that ought to be, he ought to be able to support a little bit of that.
I would love to see him at least maybe fill in for one show while they're finding the next EIB star,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say Rush's replacement because he can't be replaced, but I would love to see him take a spot or try out for
maybe,
it. You know?
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
And he started his podcast not long after Rush stopped doing shows. It was kind of they almost coincided with each other.
Interesting timing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I guess we'll keep our eyes on him. But I like him.
Yeah. Yep, me too.
And then finally we got this, there's a bill to overhaul police practices.
Is this a national
What are
bill?
they going to federalize police practices?
Police
I don't
training
understand
and stuff
this.
or something? That's ridiculous.
Well, they're gonna ban chokeholds.
And which power of the which power of Congress in the Constitution gives them any power at all to do that? I
guess they're giving themselves new. I don't know. I don't know where they're getting this.
Like, what? Yeah. Come on, guys. Can you read? Open up the Constitution. There's 18 things you have the power to do. That's all.
Yeah. It's not... I don't know. It's kind of sad, but I can't see how this works out real well. I can see how you call the police because maybe, okay, picture this. Drunken husband is getting angry with his wife and he starts knocking her around and somebody calls the police, either her or the kids or a neighbor, and now police are dealing with this drunken husband. At this point, they don't have a whole lot of choices.
Yeah.
I mean,
excuse me.
Especially what if like one or two cops show up?
Excuse me.
Like if a woman and a man
I guess
to get control of this guy.
I guess the intention is that instead of putting him in a chokehold, they're supposed to take out their baton and whack him on the back of the head hard enough to knock him out. Is that the idea?
Like Rodney
is that what
King?
they're going for? Yeah.
Or tase
they're
him?
supposed to Rodney King him.
Or just shoot his butt. I mean, if we shoot him, then as long as he's white, I don't know.
Yeah, something
what
like that.
do you do with the black woman whose husband is beating her? What do you do with that guy? I guess stand back and let it happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is the kind of thing I've always said that when Democrats are in charge, they don't govern, they play at government. It's kind of like playing house. When you're little and you play house, you just get to make up all kinds of rules and make all kinds of decisions for your household that an adult who actually runs a household knows you can never do, and you can never make those decisions. But when you're a kid, you don't, the sky's the limit. You make whatever decisions you get to because it's your house and you're playing house. That's how Democrats are when they get into government. That's why they're so dangerous.
Yeah, it's, I guess it passed in the House, this bill, and I guess it's going to go to Senate, and let's pray that it doesn't get through there.
Yeah.
They're talking about, getting rid of the major majority that you have to have. You can get it with
super
just
majority?
50%. Yeah, super majority. So
you're talking about for
if we give up that, then they're going to pass so many crazy things over the next year and a half.
There's only certain things
terrible.
that they need a supermajority for, though.
Huh?
There's only so many things that they need a supermajority for, though.
To pass these laws, don't they?
What's that?
To pass these kinds of laws, don't they need a supermajority?
No, just a majority.
Oh, really?
They get a majority in both houses.
Stinks.
It goes to the president. They need a supermajority to override a veto, for example.
Oh, okay.
Which they can't get rid of that because that's constitutional. It used to be that I think it used to be that they needed a supermajority.
So they could pass these laws now.
Like to override a filibuster, and there are certain other things that they need a supermajority.
What about for allowing Puerto Rico to become a state? Do they need a supermajority for that?
Oh, that's another thing. That's another thing that they may be trying to reduce to a simple majority. I don't know if there's a constitutional rule on that or not, but that may be another thing that because they definitely want to add Puerto Rico and
DC
as states. Which it's like the thing is, how would it work for DC to be a state? Because Congress is basically I know there's a mayor of DC and they probably have a city council and that kind of stuff, but DC is not a state, and Congress can pass laws outside of their normal 18 powers that affect Washington, D.C. They have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
But if D.C. becomes a state, Congress can no longer do that. Congress loses power over Washington, D.C. if it becomes a state.
Then they have
but
to
then you've got
elect.
This weird, okay, now one of the states is where the seat of government, now a state owns the seat of government, which is exactly why D.C. was created to prevent.
Yeah.
It's nuts. This goes more to what I was saying, that Democrats, when they get into government, they don't govern, they play at government. They play house with the government. And it's a really dangerous thing.
Yeah, it's Well, we keep praying, and I guess, look, we have a few things on our side, because things look really bleak right now. If they do these things, you would say the country's going down. There's no saving America if they really have their way over the next 2 years. But we do have a couple things, and I'm not just talking about in the government right now in America, but all the things that we've talked about so far in this podcast. What's going on in the church, what's going on in our culture, and what's going on in our government. It seems like the whole dang world is doomed. But here's what we have on our side. Number one, we've got reality.
Yeah,
they can talk around
point,
reality, but they can't change
smack
reality.
Up against that wall. That's right.
Biden's government, Biden's rules, everything Biden did was a colossal failure. We lost money. We lost jobs. We lost everything under Biden. Not Biden, Obama.
Obama, right. Yeah.
During Obama's
such
reign,
a failure as a president.
America just went downhill. During Trump's reign, everything went up.
Oh gosh, everything was really looking, and I think that's what honked the Democrats off more than anything.
Yeah,
and
everything
even
looks so bright.
The never-Trumper Republicans were honked off about that.
Right, because it showed how ineffectual they had been for the past 50 years.
Yeah.
But that reality still exists. And on top of that, things like the fact that it still takes a man and a woman to make a baby.
That's true.
No matter what you do in a laboratory, it still takes a man and a woman to make a baby. That's not going to change.
It in a dish, but you need the egg from the woman and the sperm from the man.
That is reality. Plain and simple. You can't change it. So we've got that on our side. And eventually, you hope that more and more people see this reality, because when people like AOC talk about whatever she's talking about, the crazy things she's talking about, you hope that more and more people will be like, all right, this is kind of silly. I mean, I could see the truth right here. When you've got CNN saying it's a peaceful protest, and behind them a building is burning down.
Burning buildings and throwing Molotov cocktails.
The reality is right there in front of you. And
CNN reminds me of the, you remember during the Second Gulf War, like as Baghdad was being invaded by U.S. forces, and the official radio station was broadcasting that the enemy is on the run. That CNN reminds me of them.
Yeah. Well, okay. We have reality. Number two, we know that still at least almost a majority of Americans know reality.
Yeah. I would say
Trump
the
got
majority.
a lot of votes.
Trump got a lot of votes, and I would say that the majority of Americans, what you see on the news, what you end up being able to read in, like when you jump onto your internet browser and it shows, like top stories before you even type in a URL to go to Google or whatever, your browser probably collects some feeds from some key places, shows top stories, all of that stuff. What you hear, a lot, just look at your, social media stuff and what gets filtered and arranged for the feeds and that kind of stuff. I would say that all of that stuff together is being done by like less than 10% of the people in the United States.
Yeah, trying to convince you that the rest of us don't exist.
Exactly. And maybe there's another 30% of the people that actually fall for some of that stuff. But I think the majority of people really don't fall for it, really don't believe it, really do understand reality, and are, either wondering, well, what the heck am I going to do about it? Or think, well, I'll just keep my mouth shut because everybody else is out in this, la-la land.
Right. And that is the problem now. That's the problem we face, is that people are keeping their mouth. And there's also there's a pretty good percentage of people who just don't care, who don't think
there is that.
any of this stuff affects them. It's like, well, it is what it is. What do I care?
Yeah.
I still got to go to work tomorrow morning, so I don't really care what you guys do in Washington.
Right. But the fact that so many people do see the truth and understand the truth, all it takes is that trigger to turn on the courage for them to start speaking.
Right.
Or that trigger to open up a platform for them to start speaking. Not each one speaking out individually, but just giving, being able to talk in normal conversations and say, yeah, I think this whole transgender thing is stupid. And to be able to say that out loud in public or at the workplace or whatever, all it takes is that little thing to trigger the courage to just be honest. And wow, it's over for the liberals at that point. Yeah.
So in government and in culture right now, we've got those two things. We've got reality, and we've got, I think we still got a majority.
Call it the real people factor.
We got to tap into that, but people. It's there, and it offers us hope.
Absolutely. And you see that when we talk about culture, let's go back to the ecclesiastical thing. We see that it's there because of the accelerating rise in popularity, for example, of the traditional Mass and traditional worship forms. Yeah. Well, that's among Catholics, but I think there's also a similar phenomenon that we're going to start seeing of people wanting less weirdness in what they consume in terms of entertainment and so on and so forth in the secular world.
We would hope that.
Well, I expect to see it.
But that is one thing, is that's the other thing. In the spiritual realm, we still have God on our side.
Oh, that's right.
That certainly means something.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean anything right now, because God gives us enough rope to hang ourselves sometimes. As a matter of fact, he does it often. Throughout the Bible, he kept giving the Israelites enough rope to hang themselves, and they kept doing it. And then he would come in and save them. It stinks because when you look at the freedoms we have here in America and how many people are, I don't know if they're going to hell, but they're doing things that will put them in hell, and it's a shame.
They're abusing the freedoms so badly. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Right. But we hope that God still has some love for America and will pull us out of this. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but I know one thing. When I think about the fact that I think Pope Francis has a real dislike for traditional Catholics, he has a real dislike for Americans, and he has a real dislike for the traditional Latin Mass, it worries me because he might take it away from us, and he could take it away from us. Yeah. But I'm not real worried about it because he can't take God away from us.
That's right.
God is still God. God said he would be here, and he said his church would be here.
And that's the thing. I mean, the groundedness of traditional Catholics is because of their love for God. The devotion to the traditional Mass is because we love God, and we see this and so much worship given to God in the Mass. And in fact, Americans who love America, well, you know what? That's grounded in our love for God too, for us Catholics.
It is. Yeah, certainly. And it goes back to what we've been saying all along, is that the freedom we enjoy here in America allows the most people to do the most good and harnesses or limits the amount of damage that bad people can do. And we hope that will continue, but whether it continues or not, it might be a point at which the good people who are here in America, who are enjoying the traditional Latin Mass and who are enjoying the freedom to do good, might have to go through some suffering first, might have to suffer some martyrdom. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to see and pray. And hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, it's not going to destroy the church. It'll only make it stronger.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. That's what keeps happening throughout history. So, that's all I've got for the main segment there.
That's all I've got to, except I want to mention one thing. Because we talked briefly about America, February issue of First Things magazine. There's an article. It's kind of actually written from a Jewish point of view. It's called Lincoln's Almost Chosen People. First Things, February issue. I don't know whether you can get it online or not, but I just wanted to mention that article because in that article, even though this wasn't the point of the article and the article didn't make this argument, but you read that article and you see in it a very solid and almost profound argument for American exceptionalism.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to put that out there for anybody who wants to go check it out.
First Things,
February 2021, Lincoln's Almost Chosen People.
Okay. I will check that out. Now, in the news. Okay, we talked about this a little bit. No, we didn't talk about this one. The Equality Act has passed the House. It's headed to the Senate. I guess this essentially erases gender, you know?
Oh,
pretty much
the
any
one
man
where they're
can do
not
what a
allowed to
woman
write law.
does.
They can't write rules or laws
Yeah.
that contain certain relational terms or something like that. Weren't some of the terms kind of silly, like cousin or that didn't even seem to have any gender to it?
I don't know. All I know is that it kind of, any man can do what, if somebody says only women can do something, now a man can do it. And I guess vice versa. But although half the things that men do, I don't understand why a woman would want to do.
This only has to do. I mean, this isn't like an ERA kind of a thing. This is only concerning the rules of the House regarding the text with which laws are constructed, or something like that.
No, I don't think so. I think you're wrong.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Because I keep hearing them talking about, well, okay, now women can play men can play women's sports, and
yeah, it's a rule. It's part of the rules package for the 117th. It's basically the rules for the 117th session or whatever. For
it would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in employment, housing, public accommodations, public education, federal funding, credit, and
so what are you
etc.
talking about? Because I was looking at
This is the
something
Equality Act.
we may be talking about two different things. What's it called?
Yeah, the Equality Act. It was just voted in. So gender identity is one of them. So if I want to go play
Equality
sports,
Act.
if I want to go wrestle for the women's wrestling team, all I gotta do is say I'm a female, and now I can beat up all the girls and basically dominate women's sports, which is already happening. But certain leagues may have tried to put a stop to it. They cannot put a stop to it anymore. I tell you what, eventually this is going to go to the church.
Yep.
And
because they're going to say you have to ordain women.
That is what this is headed toward.
Services and federally funded programs to include retail
federally
stores,
funded
services
means
such as banks and legal services and transportation. Yeah, it's tending that way. I don't think this act specifically will go there. But
no, this won't. But it will soon.
Way. Yes.
And it's doing all kind. This act itself is doing a lot of damage. But
yeah, it's a bad act.
It's a really bad act.
Should not be passed.
Probably one of the worst we've ever passed, but at least one of the stupidest we've ever passed. But it is what it is. They're doing it. I mean, I don't see any way to stop it. You can write your congressman. I don't really tell people to write their Congress. I don't think it does
believe
anything.
it really does anything.
So that's that. Now they have. I guess the House has just passed the Joe Biden's COVID relief packet. Why are people still talking about COVID? I haven't known anyone with COVID for probably 4 months. I don't think people have COVID anymore. I really don't.
There's some who get it. I'm trying to think of somebody who. No, I guess I don't know somebody who actually got it.
You know what we stopped getting now suddenly is the flu.
Yeah, nobody gets the flu anymore.
Yeah, because of all the masks we're wearing or something. I don't know. That's what they're trying to say anyway. I think right now, what's going on right now is people get the flu and then they come in and they say, well, you got COVID.
Yeah.
So, he's supposed to be, they signed a $1.9 trillion relief package. And they're going to send some more payments out. I don't know, whatever. They're just printing money now. It's
ridiculous.
Just getting silly. Yeah. So, get this. Cuba approves its first animal welfare law. And
Cuba?
So some civil society groups are saying that it doesn't go far enough because it doesn't outlaw animal sacrifice or cockfighting.
Okay. So the cockfights are still going to stay open in Cuba.
Right. And you can still treat people however you want, but you can only do certain things with animals. The government can still
enslave people, but animals have rights now.
Right. So, it'll regulate scientific experiments on animals. Like Cuba does any scientific experiments.
I get it.
Are you kidding me?
People can still be enslaved by their government, but you're not allowed to use animals for the service of people like scientific experiments.
Right.
That's what it is.
I think probably for like pregnancy tests, they still use the rabbit ovaries. That's probably what that is. I don't know. It's such a backward third world society.
You can't catch me because your rabbit done died.
Yeah. No, this is this one should be in the nonsense news. Yeah. So the United States Capitol Police have asked the National Guard remain there for another 60 days because they're afraid of a second attack on the Capitol. It's so stupid.
That's because Trump came out and made a speech or something, right?
Yeah. Trump came out and gave everybody a rah, rah, rah. So now we must be planning a second attack. It's so stupid. Would you not be so embarrassed if you were a Capitol cop? Be like, man, these people think we're idiots.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, I really think, like, people who live in Washington, D.C., I think they're all that stupid, and they don't even realize how stupid they are.
That is possible.
You know, and I gotta even
a lot of
dumb
people
too.
who don't know they're dumb. Like
AOC,
exactly. She doesn't realize how stupid. And you can try to convince her, try to show her, look, this is truth here. This is reality. But she can't see that. She's just, I'm smart enough to make my own reality. I think that's what it is. So, okay. Let me see if I can pronounce these things.
Okay.
Scientists discover Argentinosaurus. DZH. How do you pronounce that consonant? DZHA. Argentinosaurus king. A new dinosaur found in Asia, just north of Afghanistan. This new fossil. And so it's a new kind of dinosaur. Wait a minute.
Massive new dinosaur.
Wait a minute. What? No, I'm wrong. I thought we had a new dinosaur. No, it's the first time we found this dinosaur in that area of Asia.
Oh, okay. An already existing one.
Yeah. So it was like the Diplodocus. It's a Diplodocus-like dinosaur fossil. But I guess think of like a Brontosaurus mixed with what's the kind that looks like a platypus?
Okay.
So it's those two bodies kind of combined to see this thing, and they're acting
so like the
maybe
platypus paddles and stuff, but a brontosaurus sort of neck and head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there is a new dinosaur in January 2021 says massive new dinosaur might be the largest creature to roam Earth. Found in Argentina. They're calling it Argentinosaurus huinculensis right now. Believed to be one of the closest related species to the newly discovered titanosaur. So I guess there is some... Oh, wow. They've got, like, some people standing by on like, what looks like it might be the
Ninja Titan? Are you talking about the Ninja Titan?
No. Ninja Titan. Argentinosaurus, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But that sounds like it's a new one that they discovered. But
what?
They're saying it's possibly just a titanosaur. So Argentinosaurus is the specific remains, I guess. I've never heard of a titanosaur.
I've never heard of one of those either. You know what?
We've been out of the dinosaur game for a while, haven't we?
Yeah. I question some of these things. Because I know they find like one single bone and they build a whole dinosaur out of it. And you look at the actual bones that they have... Like, okay, go to Wikipedia Argentinosaurus, and you can see the actual bones that they found, and they built the rest of the dinosaur out of that. And it's like, wait a minute.
But you don't know. I see like this picture of three guys, standing at the excavation site with the backbone, and I think it's actually the start of the tailbone. But it's like, well, that's pretty huge. That belonged to some big animal.
That is a big old bone.
Yeah. So.
My dog would have trouble eating that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the news I got.
Okay. Well, I got a few things. I got to decide what order to put these in. Okay, so. Let's see. All right, I know what order I'm going to go in. So first, a New York City steakhouse has to observe their limits in terms of how many people they can sit at seats and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so rather than just leave them empty, they borrowed wax mannequins, I guess, from Tussauds, Madame Tussauds wax museum to occupy the tables that aren't supposed to be occupied by people. So you might dine next to, somebody like Audrey Hepburn or,
Oh, I thought you said, wax.
Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, wax mannequins from Tussauds, from Madame Tussauds Wax Museum.
These earbuds don't work real well, and I thought you said black mannequins.
Oh, black mannequins. Oh, yeah, they got to fill
only
it with black people.
Hey, look at me! I've got a black friend. These people are really white.
Wouldn't be surprising in today's world, would it?
Yeah. Okay. Wax. So you can dine with John Wayne and
you can dine next
all
to
kinds of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Martin Luther King.
I guess. All right. Next. So a woman in Seattle bought a crochet kit at a thrift shop, and she opened it up and found a kilo of cocaine inside.
Wow. Some guy got in a lot of trouble.
I know. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
He had to ditch it. Nearest thing was this crochet kit. He figured he'd come back for it. Now his
or like all the way back in the factory, like, I hid it in here to keep from getting arrested, but I mean a whole kilo, that's like
somebody ended up with concrete shoes for that.
Yeah. I mean, that's dangerous.
Gosh. I know.
I think about that every now and then. I think, like they'll have like a TV series. In one of the episodes, they find a bunch of money and they end up keeping it or whatever. And I always, whenever I see these episodes, I think about the guy who lost it, who had obtained it illegally, but now he lost the mob's, $50,000. Now, somebody's got to pay for that. And
that's right.
If I ever found that much money, I don't know what I'd do. Cause I think I'd probably turn it in because I'm like, somebody's going to get their throat slit over this. I don't want it on my hands.
No. Gosh. All right. This will be interesting to us because we used to have goats. It's not a goat story. It's a sheep story. So a wild Australian sheep. So this is, I guess, a sheep in the wild that was found outside of Melbourne in Australia. And I guess it was sickly or whatever. So, they got it, they caged it, and they sheared it to get rid of all its wool. It yielded 78 pounds of wool.
That is a lot of wool.
Can you imagine?
So
they've got videos of this thing. They've got videos of the sheep, and they've got videos of taking the wool off and stuff on the link I sent.
So that raises a couple things. Like, first of all, hey, let's start breeding these things, or even cross them with domestic sheep so we can get something that will give us more wool.
Yeah.
But also, why are they catching? Are they endangered or something?
Well,
this species?
It says it was a wild and ailing sheep was found in a forest. And I guess just because it was obviously sick or something, they said, well, let's see what we can do for this animal. So they took it in and sheared it. Typically, sheep are sheared every year.
Yeah.
And I guess this one was wild, so it had, and you could look at it. It is nasty. This wool is not going to be used to produce any kind of clothing or anything.
Be surprised what they could do with some bleach.
Okay, well,
the thing is, if you found a wild deer
sweaters there
with a broken leg or something, you wouldn't try to cage it. You would just shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Even the SPCA would, like, if a deer gets hit by a car and it's suffering, the SPCA will come out and they'll shoot it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pee Wee, we got a cousin. He's kind of a character. He was driving to work and he saw some lady on the side of the road. So he pulls over, and in front of her car is a deer that she had hit. And she said she had called the SPCA, and she was waiting for the SPCA to come out and do something with it because it was still alive, and it was obviously in pain. So Pee Wee stood around waiting for him because he's like, I'm going to get this deer. And this SPCA guy comes out and shoots it, and Pee Wee's getting excited because he's going to throw it in his truck and take it home and butcher it. And the guy picks it up and throws it in the SPCA truck. He's like, "Hey, wait a minute! Can I
have that?
Can I take it? Can I? Yeah. I'll eat it." And the guy's like, "Screw you! I'm eating it." He took it. He took it. That's like a
Pee Wee should have just shot it himself. He had a gun in his trunk.
Yeah, but the thing is, the thing is, there's a. But you got to buy tags if you want to. Okay,
that's
first
right.
of all, it has to be in
even
season.
For a hit deer. Yeah, you have to have a tag.
Yeah, so this is out of season.
But the thing is,
he gets to shoot a deer out of season, and he doesn't have to use one of his tags.
And he doesn't have to field dress it right there, because normally you have to take it back and right.
Well, you do. I don't think you have to, but
okay. I thought
you
that
just
was
do because it ruins
easier.
the meat. It makes it lighter, and it keeps stomach stuff from leaking out onto the meat. But this guy gets to not use his tag and gets a deer, and he gets to do it out of season. And
gosh, yeah. If you know how to do that, you just
he was pretty angry. He was hard to deal with that whole day.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so anyway, they I guess they saw this sickly deer. They said, "Hey, let's catch and shear that thing." Mm-hmm. All right, my last item is, I guess, California. Okay. So she went in to get her new driver's license, and they said, "Okay, go over there for your picture." And she was waiting for them because you go into the DMV, you got to wear a mask, and she's waiting for them to say, "Take your mask off for the picture." They never did.
Yeah.
She's got a driver's license that has her face with a mask on it on the driver's license picture.
Isn't that convenient?
I know. Gosh, talk about But the thing is,
that makes
fake
identity
IDs
theft
so much
easy.
Yeah, exactly. So
we should all do that. I could be Rusty Shackleford.
It's like, yeah, that could be anybody. You just need a little bit of the right hair and the right color eyes, and anybody could be behind that mask.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know who Rusty Shackleford is?
What's that?
Do you know who Rusty Shackleford is?
No, I did not.
That's King of the Hill, Dale's
never
stolen
watched
identity.
it.
He always... Okay, well, there's a character named Dale, and he's funny, and he's all paranoid, and he always uses a fake identity, and it's always Rusty Shackleford.
Oh, okay.
One of the episodes, there was really a Rusty Shackleford, and he came to get his identity back, but, okay. Anyway, it's funny. I love that show.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Well, it's late, and we need our sleep.
Yeah, we started late this time.
Yeah, we will talk to you all next week or in 2 weeks, depending on what happens, because we keep missing a week. But anyway, think about what we said, and as always,
circle the beads.
Keep praying, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.